Last summer, I returned to my hometown, a small fishing village with charm and secrets. I was back to finish a research project and help sort through my late father's estate. The village felt familiar, but different. The weathered docks and old boats remained, but something was off. The people were friendly, yet shadows lingered in their smiles. On my first week, I collected data by the docks. One evening, I saw flickering lights on the water. I thought they were just fishermen coming home, but unease settled over me. I kept staring at those lights as I walked away. It felt like they were watching me. Days passed, and I saw those bright lights again. This time, I noticed strange shadows near the water's edge. I tried to brush it off, thinking it was just my imagination. But every evening, I found myself drawn back to the dock. My heart would race a little. Why was I scared? I loved the ocean. I decided to ask some of the older residents about the lights. They leaned in, whispering stories about a ship that vanished decades ago. They said the crew still wandered the water, searching for something lost. I chuckled at the tales, but felt a shiver run down my spine. Each night, as I returned to the docks, those lights seemed to call me. Sometimes I thought I saw figures dancing just out of reach. Those nights felt colder. The air was thick with secrets. I felt like something was waiting for me to uncover it. I began to wonder if I was losing my grip on reality. Could the lights be a natural phenomenon, or were they tied to that old ship? I didn't want to sound crazy, so I kept quiet. But a deep desire to understand grew inside me. As summer began to slip away, the mystery intensified. I got more confused by what was real and what was in my head. I thought I was just studying the ocean, but now I was trapped in something darker. Each evening brought me closer to the unknown. One night, I heard a voice from the shore. It called my name softly. I froze. I wasn't alone. I turned to look, but the figure was too far away and blurred by shadows. My heart raced. I could hardly breathe. The figure swayed in the darkness. It felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. I hesitated, wondering if I should step forward or run. I felt pulled towards the dock, as if something was dragging me closer. Then the lights blinked out. I stood there, cold and trembling. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I was stuck, facing the shadows that whispered secrets I couldn't understand. The air around me felt charged, and I knew that whatever waited for me out there was waiting patiently. I was caught in a web of mystery, and I could feel it tightening. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer just a marine biologist. I was part of something that had been waiting for me long before I returned. The next evening, I hesitated before heading to the docks. My senses were on high alert. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, but there was no beauty in it for me now. I felt an icy grip in my chest, but I had to know what was out there, lurking in the dark. As I stepped onto the dock, I was surprised to see a figure standing at the end. It was slender, almost ghost-like, frozen in place. My heart raced. Was it the same one from before? I squinted, but the shadows danced around it, obscuring my view. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. The figure turned slightly, and for a moment I thought I saw familiar features. My breath caught. Was it someone I recognized? But before I could move closer, the lights flickered back to life. A constellation of glowing orbs floating above the water. My pulse quickened in tandem with the lights. They seemed to pulse, as if alive, beckoning me to come closer. Suddenly, I heard a sound. A clang against the dock echoed sharply. I spun around, heart pounding, and saw a rope lying on the boards. It looked old and frayed, as if it had been tossed there long ago and forgotten. I didn't remember seeing it before. There was something odd about it. I inched forward, drawn by the rope. My uneasiness pulled in two directions. Then, from within the shadows, that voice returned. "You shouldn't be here." It was soft, nearly lost in the breeze. I felt a chill wash over me. I turned back to the figure, but it had vanished, blending seamlessly into the night. The lights expanded, flickering faster now, like they were agitated. I felt trapped between the rope and the shimmering lights. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run far away from whatever was happening. But my curiosity held me. I reached down to touch the rope, feeling the rough texture against my skin. That was when I noticed a small knot tied in it, one I recognized. My father used to tie knots like this when he went sailing. I stumbled back, my heart beat loud in my ears. Did my father have something to do with this? A wave of confusion washed over me, dragging me deeper into a whirlpool of questions. My mind raced. Could this rope and what it represented be tied to the ship and the crew that the villager spoke of? Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement near the edges of the dock. The figure was back now, closer than before, half hidden in shadows. "They will come for you," it hissed. "You need to leave now." Panic surged through me. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Should I run or confront what was happening? I felt the pull of the lights again, stronger this time. My father's presence loomed in my mind, urging me to uncover the truth. As I stood frozen, the orbs flickered and brightened, casting sharp beams across the dock. Shadows danced wildly, and the air thickened with a sense of foreboding. That's when I realized I wasn't just facing my past. I was about to confront the very forces that had been haunting this village for decades. I felt it deep within me. I needed answers fast, or I might vanish like that old ship. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. The voice echoed in my mind, urging me to leave, but I couldn't move. The lights above me twinkled like stars, and I felt an inexplicable connection to them. They seemed to whisper secrets I desperately wanted to know. Then the figure moved again, stepping into the light. I gasped. It wasn't just any figure. It was a woman dressed in tattered clothing that looked centuries old. Her eyes were wide, almost hollow, and her gaze was filled with urgency. "They are coming for you," she said, her voice trembling. "You must listen." Who's coming?" I stammered, trying to make sense of what was happening. "The ones who belong to the sea," she said. "They are restless. You have to find the truth, or you'll become part of their story, like my crew." "Your crew?" I echoed. I had heard tales of lost shipmates, but I never thought I'd meet someone connected to them. Before I could ask more, a low rumble shook the dock, and the water stirred violently. The glowing orbs flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows like finger-like tendrils on the planks. My fear grew deep and wide. The very waves underneath me threatened to turn the dock into its dark embrace. "You have no time," the woman said, her voice now sharper. "Take the rope, follow the lights, and uncover the truth they guard." I glanced back at the rope. I felt like it was pulsing with energy, alive and begging to be unraveled. But a part of me battled the instinct to flee. The woman seemed to catch my hesitation. "Trust me, I lost them all. Don't lose yourself." With a resolve I didn't know I had, I grabbed the rope, feeling its coarse fibers dig into my palms. Solid, reliable. Then the woman's figure flickered for a moment, and I could see her face more clearly. There was a pain there, one that made my chest ache. I felt the urge to comfort her, yet I had my own battles to fight. Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind me. I turned, and my heart dropped. A shadow emerged from the water. It reflected the lights above. Was it part of the crew she spoke of? Whatever it was big, and I sensed its hunger. "They're coming!" the woman shouted, fading. "Further from view!" I stumbled backward, slipping on a piece of wood that jutted out of the dock. My grip tightened on the rope. I couldn't just abandon it, not after everything I had seen and felt. As I regained my balance, the lights flickered one last time, revealing something beneath the surface. A face. hollowed eyes staring back at me from the depths of the water. My breath hitched. That's when I knew. Whatever lay below, it wanted me too. I had to make a choice, run or dive head first into the unknown. "Don't look away," the woman's voice echoed as the lights dimmed, leaving behind only darkness. I felt the darkness wrap around me like a suffocating blanket. In that moment, my mind raced. The woman's warnings echoed in my ears, but I also sensed something stirring beneath the water's surface. The shadows danced erratically, teasing my eyes. I had to decide, stay and risk it all, or pull away from the unknown. With shaking hands, I tightened my grip on the rope. The coarse fibers scratched my palm, grounding me. I stepped forward, choosing to follow the lights. They seemed to pulse with a life of their own, leading me deeper into the dock's enigmatic gloom. As I moved cautiously, I could hear the muffled sounds of waves crashing against the posts and the creaking of the dock. Every little noise made me jump. Then I spotted what looked like a lantern flickering ahead, one of the glowing orbs, but brighter. It illuminated what appeared to be the path I needed to take. I quickened my pace toward the light, ignoring the cold fear creeping up my spine. My heart raced even faster. I felt drawn to it, desperate to uncover what lay ahead. When I reached the lantern, I discovered it was attached to a rusted chain leading down to the water. A wave of regret washed over me. Had I made the right choice? Then I noticed the soft whispers drifting through the air. They were just barely audible, but I could catch phrases that sent shivers down my spine. "Help us," and "find the truth." The voices sounded familiar. Was it the crew she spoke of? Were they pleading for something or warning me? Before I could think, I pulled at the chain. It rattled against the rusted metal, and the light flickered even more. The shadows around me thickened, twisting and spiraling with a purpose. I felt pressure build around my chest, as though the lurking presence from the water was closing in. Why was I still standing there? Just then, with a loud clang, the lantern broke free from its mooring, crashing onto the dock. The light sputtered, illuminating the water's edge in an eerie glow. I was terrified, but somehow compelled to look. That's when I saw it. A shimmering object gleaming beneath the rippling surface. It was a pendant, the same one I had noticed around the woman's neck. Heart pounding, I reached down, my fingers barely skimming the water. Would it be worth it? I couldn't shake the overwhelming feeling that it held answers that could either save me or destroy me. A sudden wave rolled violently against the dock, splashing water over my arm. I yanked it back, gasping as the cold shock ran through me. The whispers intensified, swirling like a storm. "You are part of this," they said in unison. "You cannot turn back." The weight of their words hung heavily in the air. I felt trapped between two worlds, the safety of the dock and the enticing danger beckoning me down below. My gaze darted back to the dark water, and I could almost sense the hunger rising from the depths. That's when I knew. The choice wasn't just a simple decision anymore. It was a pathway into a chilling truth, or an escape from a lurking threat. As the murmur of voices crescendoed around me, I prepared to dive into the unknown. I took a deep breath and dove into the water. The cold enveloped me instantly, a shock that stole the air from my lungs. Panic surged as I kicked downward, propelled by a mix of fear and curiosity. The dim light from the dock faded, replaced by a heavy darkness that pressed against me. My eyes strained to make out shapes below. The whispering voices faded, but were soon replaced by the sound of rushing water in my ears. I felt weightless, suspended between the surface and the depths. I had to find the pendant. It was the key. It had to be. I swam deeper, forcing my arms to move quickly. The water felt thick, almost alive, wrapping around me like a living thing. I spotted the shimmer below, a dart of silver. My heart raced, a mix of hope and dread. I pushed toward it, kicking fiercely. As I reached for the pendant, my fingers brushed against something rough. I pulled my hand back, startled. My instincts screamed that I wasn't alone. I glanced around. The shadows around me began to shift. The darkness felt different, heavier. I turned and froze. A form loomed before me, barely visible in the murky depths. My heart sank. Was it a mirage, my panic playing tricks? Then I saw it clearly. A figure, pale and translucent, drifting closer. Its mouth moved silently, as if trying to say something. I fought the urge to retreat, curiosity anchoring me in place. "Help us," the figure mouthed again, desperately. Recognizing the plea sounded like one of the voices. Dread flooded through me. Was this part of the crew? I couldn't tell if it was a warning or a cry for help. Either way, I was being pulled into something far beyond my understanding. I felt a strong tug on my ankle. Panic erupted as I realized the pendant was just out of reach, glimmering tauntingly. I kicked harder, but the pull intensified. My lungs burned, and instinct took over. I had to escape. With a surge of will, I reached for the pendant again. This time, I grasped it tightly in my hand. The moment I did, the figure's eyes widened. It pointed frantically, urging me to follow. I hesitated, knowing that every second counted. A swirl of energy enveloped me, pulling me farther into the depths. I tried to resist, but the force was too strong. Instead of fear, I felt a flicker of resolve. I couldn't turn back. Not now, not with the truth so close. Suddenly, the water around me shifted, and I saw a glimmer of light breaking through the darkness above. The moment was fleeting, but enough to shift my focus. I kicked toward it with all my strength, dragging the weight of the pendant behind me. As I broke through the surface, gasping for air, I could finally hear the whispers again, clear and more urgent than before. "You have what we need," they cried. Stumbling onto the dock, I clutched the pendant to my chest. I felt utterly disoriented. The energy of the shadows still swirled around me, but the urgency painted a new picture. The truth was closer now, but what did it mean? Just then, a shadow flitted past me, and my heart skipped a beat. I was not done yet. The voices held a deeper secret, and I was beginning to realize I was entangled in something much larger. Looking back to the water, I braced myself. Whatever was coming next would change everything. I stumbled back, still clutching the pendant. My palms felt clammy, and my breathing was erratic. The water rippled gently now, concealing its mysteries, but I could feel something lurking beneath the surface. The whispers had faded, but their urgency was imprinted in my mind. I turned around, scanning the dock. The moonlight cast eerie reflections on the water, and the shadows seemed to pulse in rhythm with my racing heart. My head was spinning. I needed answers, but the silence around me felt ominous. "Hey, anyone there?" I called out, my voice shaky. No response. The docks felt more alive than before. I dropped the pendant into my pocket, feeling its weight pressing against me, grounding me somehow. I was drawn back to the edge of the dock. Was the figure still down there? Could it help me understand what was happening? Just then, I heard a faint splashing, followed by soft murmurs that echoed from the depths. Adrenaline coursed through me. I had to know more. I leaned over the edge, straining to see into the water. The black surface felt like glass, hiding whatever secrets it held. That's when I saw it. A flash of movement, something darting beneath the surface. A quick flash of silver caught my eye, and my heart lurched. It was a familiar shape, just like the pendant. I felt an inexplicable pull toward the water, an urge to dive back in, but fear held me back. I took a step back, hesitating. What if I found another spirit? What if it wasn't friendly? But then I remembered the plea. I had to uncover the truth. With a sudden burst of courage, I made my decision. I would dive in again. But before I could take another breath, a loud clap echoed from behind me. I whipped around to see a figure standing at the end of the dock. It was a man, tall and cloaked in shadows, his face obscured in darkness. My heart raced. It felt like I'd stepped into a scene from a nightmare. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice deep and commanding. "Don't go back in there." "What do you want?" I stammered, fighting to keep my voice steady. The man took a step closer, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "You don't understand what's at stake. That pendant, it's more than you think." "What do you mean?" He gestured towards the water. "Those whispers, those voices, they're trapped. You're risking everything by getting involved." Suddenly, the water splashed violently, as if responding to his words. "You have to leave," he urged, panic rising in his voice. "They'll come for you." I glanced back at the water, then at the man. The shadows were closing in. I had a choice to make: listen to him and flee, or dive back into the unknown for the truth. As I weighed my options, the whispers began to rise again, forming a chorus of urgency. "Help us," they pleaded. The figures beneath the water were beckoning. Then everything went dark. I woke up disoriented, the world around me still engulfed in shadows. I blinked, trying to orient myself. My body felt heavy, like I'd been pulled underwater and just emerged, gasping for air. The dock loomed above me, a silhouetted guardian casting distorted shapes against the faint light of the moon. "Hello?" I called out, my voice hoarse. I pushed myself up to a sitting position, the cold wooden planks biting into my skin. What had happened? My mind raced, a jumbled mess of the man's words and the haunting whispers. The water was calm again, but an unsettling tension filled the air. I noticed the pendant lying beside me, its silver surface gleaming faintly in the moonlight. My fingers brushed its edges, and a jolt of warmth surged through me, connecting me to the mystery below. "Hey!" I shouted, hoping the figure from before would appear again. "Where are you?" No one answered. It was just me and the persistent shadows that clung to the dock. As I got to my feet, the echoes of the man's warning replayed in my mind. "They'll come for you." But I couldn't leave just yet. Whatever was happening, I had to find out. I crept toward the water's edge again, my heart pounding. I leaned over, staring into the depths. It was blacker than before, but I still felt that unnerving pull. I took a breath and closed my eyes, focusing on the pendant's warmth. Maybe it would tell me what to do. Then, out of nowhere, a flash erupted beneath the surface. My breath caught in my throat. What was that? I squinted, searching the dark water for any sign of movement. Suddenly, a face appeared, pale and shimmering, just below the surface. I gasped and stumbled back, falling onto the dock. It was a young girl, her eyes wide and desperate. "Help me!" she cried, her voice a whisper melded with the rasp of the water. Guilt and fear knotted my stomach. Who was she? I scrambled back to my feet, feeling dizzy. "Wait, what do you want from me?" I yelled, panic rising as the figure vanished into the depths. Just then, from behind me, there was a sharp crack of wood, followed by the sound of footsteps. I turned, feeling a rush of fear. Who's there? Before I could react, the man emerged from the shadows again, looking more frantic than before. "Why did you go back to the water?" he demanded, his eyes darting between me and the lake. "They're calling for help!" I cried, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down. "No!" he shouted, his voice breaking. "You have to resist. They're not what they seem. You have to understand." But before he could finish, the water erupted again, a violent splash, sending waves crashing against the dock. I fell back, the pendant slipping from my grasp and falling into the water. My heart raced as I watched it disappear. "No!" I cried out, but it was too late. The lake roared, and shadows began to rise from its depths, coalescing into ghostly forms. I had awakened something, and now there was no turning back. I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest as the shadows rose higher, taking on shapes that twisted and turned in the moonlight. They looked human, but something felt off, like a reflection in a warped mirror. The girl's voice echoed again in my mind, pleading for help, mixing with the low, haunting whispers that now surrounded me. "Get away from me!" I shouted, trying to sound brave as I backed toward the safety of the dock. The man stood frozen, his expression a mix of terror and determination. "Stay close, do not engage with them," he commanded, stepping toward the edge, eyes blazing. His outburst gave me pause, but the shadows were relentless. They reached out, stretching their shadowy limbs, and I felt a cold chill creeping up my spine. "What are they?" I asked, desperate for answers. "They're the lost, caught between worlds. You don't belong to them." He grabbed my arm, his grip firm. "We have to go, now." Just as he turned to pull me away, the girl reappeared, her face breaking through the frothy surface of the water again. "Please, I need your help," she cried, her eyes widen in despair. I felt torn. Fear gripped me, but so did an overwhelming sense of empathy. "She's not like the others. I can help her," I replied, breaking free from the man's grasp. "No, you can't," he yelled, but his voice was lost in the tide of shadowy figures that had begun to swirl around me, closing in like a storm. The intensity of their presence pressed heavily against me, and I remembered the pendant. "I have to retrieve it!" I cried. I leaned over the edge of the dock, my fingers reaching down toward the murky depths. The water churned and roiled beneath the surface, and I could feel the tug of something powerful pulling me closer, luring me. Suddenly, the shadows surged upward, a cacophony of voices enveloping me. "Join us! Join us!" they hissed, the sound echoing in my ears. I gasped, the cold water splashing against my skin. Just then, there was a blinding flash of light that burst from the depths of the lake. It radiated outward, momentarily banishing the shadows. I shielded my eyes, blinking back confusion. That light! It felt familiar, almost comforting. The figure of the girl hovered just beyond the reach of the light, her expression shifting between hope and desperation. "Help me!" she screamed one last time, and suddenly that light vanished. The shadows rushed back, their whispers turning frantic. I stumbled backward, tripping over the wooden planks of the dock. The man swore under his breath, panic etched on his face. "We have to leave. There's nothing for you here." But in that moment, I felt something click in my mind. I turned to him, the urgency rising inside me. What if the light can save her? But before I could ponder further, the shadowy figures lunged forward, and the dock began to groan under the pressure of their presence. I realized then that this was my moment, either to step back or dive deeper into whatever fate awaited me. And then, everything went dark. When I came to, I was no longer on the dock, but lying on damp grass, the smell of wet earth filling my nostrils. The shadows were still there, but they hung in the distance, pulsating like a heartbeat. I blinked, disoriented, and then tried to sit up. A jolt of pain shot through my head, and I winced, pressing a hand to my temple. "Hey, are you all right?" The man's voice pierced through the thick fog of my confusion. "I think so," I managed, though the slight tremor in my voice gave me away. I focused on him as he crouched beside me, worry etched on his face. "What happened?" "The light. You were pulled in. I thought I lost you." His expression softened, relief mingled with urgency. "But we can't stay here. We have to find the pendant, and fast." Confusion reigned over my thoughts. "The pendant? But how do we find it? It's in the lake." He glanced around, his eyes scanning the shadows that still loomed nearby. "The light came from below, but the darkness is—" "We need to provoke it." "Provoke what?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "The shadows. They're feeding on fear. If we confront them, maybe the pendant will reveal itself." I nodded hesitantly, unsure if confrontation was the right tactic, but the intrigue of the light compelled me. "What do we have to do?" He stood tall, drawing from some well of bravery I wished I shared. Focus on the girl. She might guide us to it. Remember what she said. I need your help. We need to give her the chance. I swallowed hard, heart racing. The shadows still whispered, swirling like a tempest, but I felt a jolt of resolve. All right, let's do this. Together, we stood side by side, facing the chaos. Show us your light, the man shouted, his voice echoing into the void. We're not afraid of you. The shadows recoiled as if offended. But a new presence arose in their midst, a darker figure stepping forward from their depths, looming larger than the rest. I felt a chill as dread washed over me. Foolish mortals, it hissed, and its voice sent shivers racing down my spine. You think you can save her? She is ours. I steadied myself, the girl's image flashing in my mind, the pleading in her eyes igniting a spark of resolve. We will help her, I shouted back, surprising even myself with the strength of my voice. But then something unexpected happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimmer. That same light pulsed in the distance, fighting against the shadows that were threatening to swallow it whole. There, I pointed, my breath catching in my throat. Before I could react, the shadowy figure lunged at us, darkness billowing like smoke. Panic surged through me, but I refused to back down. I had to believe that whatever power the light held would guide us through this. I took a step forward, heart racing, fully aware of the stakes. Maybe this was my last chance to right the wrongs I hadn't even seen yet. Let's get that light. Just as I moved, I saw the shadows ripple, and the girl's voice echoed again. Help me! And then a rush of dread washed over me. The shadows stopped swirling, and an eerie silence enveloped the area. I could feel a presence watching us, a lurking threat, and I knew instinctively that we were being tested. Something's coming, I whispered, my gaze darting back to the man. What do we do now? He asked, eyes wide. Follow the light, I urged, adrenaline coursing through me. And with that, we charged into the unknown. I rushed forward, the man close behind me, as the pulsing light faded into the shadows. Each step felt like diving into a deeper, colder sea, the air electrified with an ominous energy that pricked at my skin. The echoes of the girl's voice surrounded us, mingling with the whispers of the shadows. She's in there. I murmured, my heart pounding. We just have to find her. The darkness roiled around us, but we pressed on, pushing through the veil of shadows. As we moved forward, the coldness seeped deeper into my bones. I could feel the despair pulsing in the air. The shadows were hungry, angry, as if protesting our intrusion. The light flickered just ahead, shimmering like a beacon through the tangled mess of darkness. Over there, I shouted, pointing. We raced toward it, our footsteps echoing against the worn ground. Suddenly, the shadow surged towards us, reaching out with clawed fingers of darkness. I grabbed the man's arm as I felt them sweep close, a cold rush that threatened to pull us apart. Stay together, I yelled. Don't let them isolate you. He roared back, determination etched on his face, and I realized that in our fear and panic, we had inadvertently wandered apart from our goal. The shadows didn't just want to trap us. They thrived on our fear, on the very doubt that whispered through our minds. We stopped and turned, the light flickering dimly behind us. We have to break through together, I shouted, though I could hardly believe my own words. My heart raced as I faced the figure emerging from the shadows, a swirling mass of despair and anger, its eyes dark voids. You meddle where you don't belong, it hissed, voice as cold as ice. She is ours. No, she deserves to be freed, I shouted defiantly. The words spilled from my lips, fueled by anger and determination. The figure paused, surprise flickering across its features. "Do you even know what you face?" it taunted. "Whatever it is, we'll stand against it." I felt emboldened by my own conviction, and as I spoke, something began to shift. The light behind us pulsed stronger, as if it resonated with our defiance. With a cry of anguish tempered by resolve, the man and I held hands tightly. Together, we faced the mass of shadows, refusing to back down. "You don't own her," he shouted, his voice firm. The dark figure shrieked, a sound that reverberated through the hollow darkness, shaking the very ground beneath us. But as the shadows recoiled, the light surged forward, golden and warm, cutting away at the darkness, illuminating the path ahead. "Keep moving," I urged, pulling the man forward as we surged into the light. The shadows writhed and screamed, but we ignored the chaos that erupted behind us. Every ounce of fear, every doubt was being washed away in the brightness that surrounded us. Bursting through, I felt the overwhelming warmth envelop us. We were on the other side, and I caught my breath, finally overcoming the darkness. As my eyes adjusted, I found myself standing in a different world entirely. Before me lay a serene landscape, shimmering and radiant, a stark contrast to the chaos we had just escaped. The girl was there, standing in the light, her eyes filled with hope. "Help me," she repeated desperately, but now accompanied with the recognition of understanding that flickered in her gaze. In that moment, the shadows began to lose their grip. They faded into the background, the light flickering above us, hovering protectively. "We're not leaving you," I shouted. I reached out my hand towards her, and the pendant in my pocket began to glow, resonating with the light. The girl's eyes locked onto the pendant, and she moved forward, stepping tentatively from the depths of darkness into the illuminating light. The darkness writhed, and I heard the voice of the figure rising from behind us, brimming with anguish. "You will regret this," it shrieked, but I was resolute, driven by the need to help her. The light pulsed again, and the shadows strained against it, distorting and struggling. But with each moment, the shadows grew weaker, and the warmth enveloped the girl completely. I felt an overwhelming rush of energy, a drive that pushed against the threat behind us. As she took my hand, the light seemed to surge, lifting us both higher, and suddenly the surroundings began to blur. Before I could grasp what was happening, I was drawn back, pulled into that familiar void. I gasped and jolted awake on the dock, heart pounding against my chest. Had it all been a dream? The moon shone brightly above me, as if mocking the turmoil I had just come from. Around me, the shadows had receded, settling back into the depths of a calm lake. The whispers had quieted, but something lingered, an unshakable sense of connection to what I'd just experienced. Did it work? The man stood beside me, his expression a mix of hope and uncertainty. I think we found her," I whispered, touching the pendant now firmly in my palm. It thrummed with warmth. The feeling was both comforting and unsettling, a lingering reminder of what I had faced. "You could have been lost," he said, genuine worry reflected in his eyes. "I think we need to go back," I confessed, looking out over the smooth surface of the water. The echoes of the girl's voice hung in the air, an unfinished story. I had to know if the journey had truly ended. But the thought was met with uncertainty. Time seemed to flow differently in the presence of the shadows. Questions about what was real and what might come next enveloped my mind. I turned to the man, resolve hardening within me. We can't just leave it like this. As I edged closer to the water, the glimmer of the stars mirrored in the surface, I realized this may not be the last time I would seek the truth. The shadows had shown me their power, but I had the light within me too. and somewhere beneath the depths I could still hear the echoes of the girl. "Help us!"